Hey, what's up, world? Live from A Culture Conversation. I'm your host, Twin GQ. Checking in on episode 9. We have a special guest with us, Toronto sports broadcaster Akil Augustine. Man, what's up to the platform, bro?
What up? Thank you for having me. I see you growing, man.
Yeah, we're trying, bro. So Akil was with us earlier in the first season, and we talked a little bit about some racial tension in America, some sport talk, as well as business. So today, before we get into our conversation, we'll give him, a chance to kind of check in, man. So what's new with you? How you been, bro?
I've been good, man. Like everyone else, dealing with the ramifications of COVID-19 and quarantining. And, I broke out for a bit, headed to Costa Rica, checked some of my people down there, and was out there for like a month. It was a nice little reset, and, being away long enough to want to come back despite everything that's going on was good for me. So now I'm home, and NBAXL is right around the corner, ready to get back to work.
Yeah, that's crazy that we talk about this time in sports with the whole COVID pandemic and the launch of the NCAA season. But going and looking forward to the upcoming NBA season, I know the Toronto Raptors will be playing in Tampa. So what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel as a sports media professional and the implications of those guys not being able to play home?
Well, I mean, for me, professionally, it sucks. Puts a lot of what we do professionally in limbo. But, I work for a great company, fortunate enough. We're going to try and fight through it. No access to players, so it really limits the kind of content that we can create and the kind of stories that we can share with the fans. But, we as a country, Canada, we've made this decision about how we're going to, go about handling COVID and our response to it. And I think America's got a very different approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, we have a Canadian team in an American league. And for better or for worse, I think this is the only compromise, right? So it's not for me to say yay or nay. Like, it's the Raptors need to exist, and they can't play here according to the decisions that we've made as a community and as a culture. So let them play in Tampa, and hopefully they win still.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy, though, because you look at the future of, the future for professional sport media professionals, and like with minimal opportunities, like where does it go from here if we don't have that live fan experience, or for yourself to have like on court or courtside reporting? Where does it go from there in terms of from like an opportunity standpoint?
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like it's going to lend itself a lot more to punditry instead of actually talking to the players, just getting into arguments a la Stephen A. and Max Kellerman. But I'll say this, like, I've actually enjoyed some of the content I found on YouTube of actual basketball storytelling, like talking about how a guy came up and getting some of those intricate, like really like granular stories about individual players that you would never, find on SportsCenter or 30 for 30 because it's a bit more obscure and cultish. And I think there's room for that, right? Yeah. Storytelling in its truest form instead of, we got algorithms writing articles now, right? It's just like plug in soundbite, plug in quote. A lot of the writing that we consume today, it's not even writing.
Yeah, it's just digitization of our technology, bro.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to see the TSN special on Mike?
Yeah. I watched that story.
What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, on the story or on Mike?
No, like the story in totality, the whole story being told for our community and, for kids to kind of see the finished product and, the process of what he had to go through.
Well, I hope Mike's not a finished product, right? Like, I think for me, we live in a culture that likes to turn stories around pretty quickly. For me, I hope Mike's got a lot more to do, a lot more to say. So I'm a fan of Mike. For me, it's deeply personal. I was there. I've known Mike since he was like 3 years old.
Yeah, Blake Street original right here.
Yeah, like I've known Mike his whole life, so I was there for all of it. So, I don't know. It's weird because like people think like he's getting his due by TSN doing this piece. I'm not anti it. I'm for it. I'm for people knowing his story, but it's not an accomplishment. I want Mike to do so much. I want Mike to really, for people to really see what that young man is capable of, because he's an amazing young kid, bright. He reminds me of myself in so many ways, just how he lights up with energy.
And very passionate too.
And very passionate. And he's gone through so much, right? And I don't want him to be a cautionary tale. I want him to turn out to be, a great story, and I don't think that story's a great story yet. I think he has so much more to do. So I'm happy that we're starting to tell our own stories. But Mike's story's not done. That story, there's so much more for him.
Yeah, and the opportunity that it opens for the second coming of young Canadian athletes and hoopers, especially in the States, is big. I feel like his story really kind of painted a tale for Canadian hoops. You see the guy like Corey and Tristan, and then Mike is right under there, and then with the Jamal Murrays of the worlds and stuff like that. So I feel like with the great influx of Canadian talent and the opportunity to kind of, like you said, right our own wrongs and tell our own stories is the direction that we have to go. So what are your thoughts on the role of social media in regards to like sports media, and what role does that play in terms of like emerging in your career?
In my career?
Or just in general in the sport
Ooh.
or the industry field?
I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about it. Like you should about everything. You shouldn't be, blindly going along with any agenda. But I think there's lots of positives coming from the proliferation of the prosumer side of these types of communication. And so I'm all for it. But at the same time, right, I think without it being, and without gatekeepers, and again, I'm anti-gatekeeper to a certain extent because, gatekeepers keep certain people out and certain people in. But at the same time, without gatekeepers now, and without a citizenry that's really media literate, then you start to get things like what happened with, the United States, right? Where a lot of people are consuming information that they're not sure is even, well, to them it's factual, right? To them it's a legitimate news source, but they're actually, it could be an algorithm. It could be co-opted by a lobby group. It could be an alternate government producing propaganda, Trump. Right? What I'm saying? Yeah. Like, so it's like, so I think I'm for it, but at the same time, again, there's a balance too, right? So everything's tough nowadays, man. Nothing is easy, right? But I'm with it. I'm benefiting from it tremendously. But again, I come from very old school journalistic principles, whereas a lot of people don't train traditionally, and then so they'll like miss something, and then that could become an issue in how that story's played out. So for me, it's a fine balance because also the people who aren't trained traditionally, they come up with these really dope things that you've never heard or seen before, right? So it's like, it's like Spike Jonze, completely untraditional filmmaker, and then you've got Tarantino, who's perfect with the camera and traditional lenses and stuff like that, right? It's a fine balance. Like, so I will say this though, there's a lot of like, if you follow a lot of the major brand social media accounts, it's just the same content being repeated. Like watch the same LeBron, whatever LeBron posted, Bleacher Report post, and the Score post, and Yahoo Sports post,
uninterrupted,
and then interrupted post, and then it's like, okay, I've seen the same thing 8 times on my feed. Relax.
Yeah, it's crazy to see the influx of, like you said, the algorithms where you like one post and on your feed, like everything that you like is generalized by your generic interests and stuff like that. So it's crazy to see where the future of technology is going with social media. So I wanted to turn to your backstory, bro, before you got into your respective field. Just, how did you get into the sports media field on the broadcasting side? I would love to hear that story.
Well, I mean, it was always part of the plan. I think most guys grew up wanting to be a ball player. I wanted to be a broadcaster. Shouts out to Stuart Scott. For me, it was pretty simple. Like, I had a guidance counselor who forced me to apply to college, and then my school gave me an academic scholarship. Luckily enough, I didn't even know. And I just had to pick a program. So I went to Seneca for radio and television broadcast journalism just because that's what you do after OAC, right? That's what you do after high school. And, it wasn't anything special. I had my ideas in my head. I think for me, the 2 biggest things in the world were television and interning. That's all I did in my 20s. Like, that's all I did. So, like, it would just be like I'd go to school and then I'd watch TV. And then around this time was like Chappelle's show was coming out.
Shout out Dave Chappelle.
There were a lot of different types of content that had really inspired me to think like, okay, like this content play, it's big.
Yeah.
And I interned a lot. And so I think that was a real thing that separated me because like I took a 2-year program at Seneca and it took me 4.5 years to finish. Because like you can't become a journalist in 2 years. Like there's not enough time to mature, to learn technique, to get comfortable with the camera, to comfortable with the microphone, right? You can't learn to become a journalist in 2 years. So it took me 4.5 years to finish the program because I had some legal issues. I had to drop out a couple times. But I looked at all the people that graduated in the 2 years times and they went on to other careers because like they're trying to cram becoming something into 2 years and you couldn't do that. And so for me, like I took a really long time to go to school, right? Way longer than everybody else who took the program. Like 2 cohorts graduated before I graduated. And then at the same time when I was in school, because I was in school for so long, I was just interning. I had other issues, so I couldn't really work like everybody else. So I was interning for anybody who'd have me. And I just got a lot of opportunity to like to see things that I didn't like and things that I liked without the pressure of turning each internship into a job. So I think I was very fortunate. I always say this, like I'm a creature of circumstance. So I was fortunate enough that like right before the internet hit and it was really easy for everybody to become content creators, I was like one of the few people who was looking at creating content before, you know,
the internet.
You had like
social media,
a phone that could film good enough. Like I remember I had like I was buying cameras off of eBay, like really old school cameras, like, and you had 18 cords to plug it into your computer. It was a fight. It was a bloody fight to the death. So this was like, so I guess this just gave me like a couple years advantage, right? Because I think one of the big things was nobody wanted to be a sports journalist when I became a sports journalist. So I think this is why like my story is tough to like for me to advise young people today because everybody wants to do this now, right? And when I was doing it, nobody wanted to do it. So there was no competition. Like I remember going to basketball tournaments, there were no cameras. I was the only camera at the All Canada Classic. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no cameras.
That's crazy.
I have all the footage from the All Canada Classic when Denim was playing, you know, when Sheps was playing.
Like the golden era.
Yeah. I have footage from way before that. Like I'm talking, I grew up with the Gary Durant's of the world and stuff. So I've had the camera. So it's like, I'm not even sure why I had it, other than like my cousin gave me a lot of electronics. Yeah. But I just had to jump. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there wasn't really competition. Like, I was the only person applying to work at Raptors TV. Nobody wanted to work at Raptors TV when the Raptors came around. Like nobody wanted to go cover the games. Like at my age group. Obviously older professionals did, but like the 18, 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids, they weren't thinking about writing or reporting for the Raptors. So it's a really different landscape now because it's a proven, you know, money machine. So it's tougher for you to differentiate yourself amongst the crowd. Whereas I was the only guy doing it, so it was easy for me to find my way to the Raptors and to find my way to Wayne Dawkins, to shoot All Canada Classic and to work with Roe and to work with Vi and to get in because there was only one camera. Now there's a lot of cameras. Yeah. So it's hard to make that it's hard for me. And now I rely on my experience, right? And just like my curated sense of what's good on camera. So it's hard for me to look at a young person and say, okay, well, here's how you're gonna make dope-ish. Because like honestly, like I don't know what your leanings are socially, politically. You know what I'm saying? Like and so that's one of the things I've encountered. Like is for me to stop giving as much advice as I do in certain regards, because like we're all unicorns. You know? Yeah. Like the situation that I came up in, you're not coming up in. So I can't really see the obstacles that you're confronting the way you do. So I more give advice in a different vein to younger people when it comes to doing what you do, right? Because like it was me and it was Cabby.
Jeez, talk about and that's another thing I wanted to talk about. When you were breaking into the industry in your field with like minimal to no representation of minorities, like how was that? Like when did it hit you that like, damn, I'm probably one of, if not the only black guy in my field?
Well, the funny story is it hit me right away because one day I think I was it was the end of high school or something. I was like, or maybe after high school. I was just at home watching Sportsnet, and NBAXL came on, the very first episode ever, or the second episode maybe. And I saw Cabby on TV, and I was like, wait a second, what? This black guy on TV, he's wearing a jersey.
Yeah.
And I ain't seen anything like that since the first time I saw Stuart Scott on ESPN, spitting slang, doing Sports Center. I was like, oh, snap. That's crazy. I want to do what that guy does. And so, again, to tell you how ridiculous the situation is, I'd been working at Foot Locker at the time, and maybe 2 or 3, maybe half a season later, like, Cabby walks into the Foot Locker that I'm working at to buy some T-shirts to go on vacation. And I just told him, bro, I want to do what you do. So that was really the nexus of it all. Like, it wasn't really like me knowing where to go or figuring out some brilliant move to get in. Like, literally, it came to me.
Wow.
On the Queen Street Foot Locker.
That's crazy.
And then he didn't respond, obviously. I told the story a million times. He hates it.
Yeah.
He was ignoring me for weeks and months, but then that's when I made a play. And I just did a bunch of lying and cheating.
So, wow. So you meet Cabby now, and, you get into the industry now, and you're actually taking off. At what point in your career did you know that you had like a chance to do something special, whether it's like, stepping outside the box or, really making history in the sports media world?
I'd say probably around 30, because I think up until 30, I was doing whatever it took to get on air. Getting on air was the holy grail. And so around 27, 28, 29, no, probably around 28, 29, I got on air consistently hosting Raptors Today on NBA TV Canada. So that's when I got there. And so then I think at 30, I got hired by the Raptors to host a pregame show on NBA TV. And I did maybe 2 episodes. And apparently it's either I offended somebody, they didn't like how I dressed because I was wearing sneakers with a suit, or I did a really poor job. That's the other third option.
I think it's the sneakers with the suit, bro.
But I got fired after 2 shows. And I think it was probably then that I knew I was going to do something, that I was going to try to at least do something that would disrupt, before the term disrupt, I didn't think of it that way anyways, to disrupt how we consume content. And what I did was I just emptied my bank account and bought a bunch of cameras like you guys are doing, and I bought a bunch of microphones, and I just stayed up every night and started this. It wasn't even YouTube yet, because YouTube, you think about what YouTube is now. YouTube wasn't what it is now. Like, people weren't just going on there consuming content as much. This is like 10 years ago. So I created a Vimeo account, and I decided I was going to make my own stuff. And so that's when I created this series called Couch Life. I started just getting my boys like John Lucas and James Johnson and other people to come to my house, and we just kick it and watch TV and watch NBA games and talk trash like we do. And the same people that fired me for doing the pregame show asked me to turn that into what eventually became The Hangout, which was my very first television program.
Oh, okay.
So that's how that happened.
Okay. So for NBAXL, that was who produced that one?
So NBAXL is another story. So NBAXL was originally created by one of my OGs, Aaron LaFontaine and Travis Belcourt. And so that was over at Sportsnet. So I was originally an intern on that show. Crazy story. Went in its second season when it first came on air. And then I interned there for like 3 or 4 years while I was in college. And then they sold, when the Vancouver Grizzlies folded, they sold the rights to NBA TV Canada to the Raptors exclusively. So that's when like Sportsnet stopped producing NBA content. So all the content that I was working on with Sportsnet got moved to MLSE.
Okay.
So I was out of job for a bit, and then MLSE asked me to come over there to work on that stuff because Cabby recommended me. And so I ended up working as an associate producer on NBAXL. Wow. Then a couple years later, they brought me back on as a host. So it's
everything's coming back in like full circle.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We had a long relationship.
Wow, that's what's
She's
up.
still kicking. Dwayne has not. So it went from Travis to myself and Sharon Coombe, who then went on to produce Barack Obama's bracket for ESPN. Legend of a lady. She was like one of my OGs. She helped me cut my teeth in TV. And after that, she took Jeff Landicho on, who does Open Gym.
Open Gym with the Raptors.
So me and him, we went to college together. He actually one of the guys.
He went to Pope too, my high school.
Yeah, he's a Pope guy. I'm a Neil McNeil guy, so the battles are real. But yeah, so he pulled me in too to help me get that job at MLSE. So he then became the producer of NBAXL. And so while me and him were working together, we both went on to our own projects. He got open gym, I got to hang out. And then my homeboy Dwayne Sweets Watson came in. So now he produces NBAXL. So it's been a family thing. That's
Wow.
I feel like it's my baby, but that's been a family show for us.
That's
for a
crazy
while.
because you don't really see that in the city as much in terms of like, creating that opportunity and extending the olive branch. So I guess in your career, talk about like when you had to climb that ladder and, you obviously have to navigate around like gatekeepers and people that are, withholding a position of power and they're not giving it to the deserving. So can you talk about like a story or something that happened to you in your career?
Whew. Well, I can openly talk about it now. I think this guy's no longer with the company, and we've all worked through, what this was. But I'll say this, and I mean everybody comes from a knowledge base. So when you're taught something your entire life, and you're told this is how things are, that's how they are, and that's how they work. And I think one of the things that when I first got into this business was we never had a basketball team before. We've had a hockey team for a long time. So a lot of the people who are account executives and marketing people and so on and so forth, they were all hockey people. So I'm this kid, and I have these basketball ideas because I'm a basketball guy. And again, to take you back in the day, like I'm 38. People think I'm like 32, 27. Like I'm old. I'm 38. Not old, really.
Damn,
whatever.
I thought you were 35, bro.
Like I'm 38. So like I'm talking about I started in this business when I was 17 doing this. So so to imagine that, like that's 20 years ago. Like there wasn't Clutch Sports Management and Entertainment. There wasn't Title. There wasn't any of this. So like the entire C-suite, the entire executive office, I know I was the only black guy at MLSE in a lot of floors for a long time. So there were people who just didn't understand what I was saying, right? And I think with time and as, quote unquote hip hop culture penetrates the mainstream and as black people are normalized, especially here in Canada through the Raptors brand, because that's one of the places you see a lot of black people on screen, running up and down, being emotional, right? It's like it's a normalization thing. I think then people kind of got warmer to ideas. Let's say I was asked to do a lot of things that were strange. I'm not gonna go into the details, but like just say like me.
Yeah,
I'm not the most amicable person. So I think there's and I think part of that is like an expectation of what a young black man is, right? So I think there's an expectation a lot of times that we are combative and that we may tend to have these worldviews that are different from the mainstream. And I think I was not old enough and prepared enough to massage my ideas in a way that would come across as palatable to the people that I was talking to. So then I started to get perceived as tempestuous and unreasonable and emotional, but it's just like I was speaking English and they were speaking French and it was really hard and I was the only one, right? I was the only, as the saying goes, the only in first class, right? And that was me since I was like 17. I was lucky enough to be in this position. I've been doing this my whole life. But at the same time, I was super isolated because I've had these ideas. I've been working in social media with the Raptors. I was the only black guy in the social media room. And now you listen to the account and it's using all these words that I would say. And you're just like, these are battles that have been fought, and not even by me, by people who were way before me. But just tons of examples. And the people who enter the workplace now, their examples are going to be, about microaggressions and concerted efforts to alienate and to marginalize them. It happens all the time. And I think the one thing for me that helps me is it allowed me to have this career that I've had. Like, I'm so fortunate and I'm so thankful. And I think the one thing that I would try to pass on to people that's allowed me to be in this position is like, and it's all wasn't me always, but I think it's become something that I do now more often that allows me to get out of some situations where I would just want to bite people's heads off, is I've recognized the ignorance, right? And so we call it racism sometimes, we call it sexism sometimes, we call it bigotry sometimes, we call it a lot of things. But I've learned the ability to recognize ignorance. And then, or I can't really say that. I sometimes have the ability to recognize, types of ignorance. But I think as a young man, I was hurt by it. And so I would try to fight it by becoming combative, winning an argument. Like, winning an argument is completely useless. Like, I've learned that so long ago. You can win an argument, but you lose a friend, always. So, like, I would try to win arguments. I would try to prove my point. I would try to do all these things, realizing that, like, there's one of me and there's 40 of these people, right? I really got to become, I don't know, like a tool, like an ally, but more of a tool for them so they can better understand what's happening. And I think that was a big adjustment for me. Instead of coming into these situations and saying, I've got to fix you guys who don't understand basketball, who don't understand black people, who don't understand culture, which is what I've done for the better part of 20 years, right? At this level of maturity, and this age, now it's like, okay, guys, look, I'm part of MLSE, I'm part of Nike, I'm part of this group, part of that group. Here's what I understand about what's going on out there. And here's how I can help you guys not look however you're afraid to look. Yeah. Also make inroads in whatever market you're trying to make inroads in. And also, like, just to, like, make the situation work a bit better for everybody. And I think that's probably one of the biggest leanings I've had of being, like, you know, the lone young black guy in corporate Canadian sports industry for the last 20 years is, like, I kind of got to be on their side for us.
Yeah, and it's crazy because sometimes it's like you gotta not like sell out, but like conform to like the traditional way at a time at like certain times of your career just to fit that mold.
Well, okay, too. So this is what I always say to myself. Well, it's at the end of the day, it's about what do you want, right? Because I think a lot of times, like, what we can do is I could go on Instagram and I could go on Twitter and I could out everybody who's wronged me, and I could lash out and I could put out the quotes and the tweets and the inner emails and show all the things that people are doing wrong. But again, the question that I started with was, what do you want? Because so if I did that, my end game or end goal would be kind of just to, like, paint myself in a positive light, feed my ego, and kind of, like, you know, just lash out. And it would probably do more damage to the structure. And when I say the structure, I mean, okay, so I'm a young black guy trying to make my way up in this industry. Mm-hmm. It's a structure, and, you know, it's a building on top of me. And if I just lash out at the beams, it'll come crumbling down on the next black guy that tries to get as far up as I do, right? Yeah. So, like, I got to be careful. But also at the same time, it's like, again, what do you want? And what I want is a situation where we're all working together. I want it to be a more workable situation for everybody. So is me lashing out, outing everybody, arguing with everybody, and being this combative soul going to accomplish the goal? Like, is now the time for Huey P. Akil? Like, no, I don't know. Like, I think, you know, everyone has their penchant for revolution and their penchant for complacency. And, you know, I'm just trying to figure mine out, but I think it's important that somebody try to negotiate the situation from a way that at least I don't see people trying to negotiate it, right? And just to add more ideas and ways of working into the atmosphere so we can just start trying other things.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So for you, I guess, in your industry, being in Toronto as a little market in comparison to like LA and New York City, have you ever thought of like relocating to kind of have like an elevated platform like an ESPN or Fox Sports?
No, because this isn't a little market.
For media.
No. So here's what it is. It's like, we're not doing it right, and I'll be the one to prove it. Then I don't think we've done it right yet. I don't think Toronto's seen it's Spielberg. I don't think it's seen it's homeboy from CNN. It's Turner. I don't think it's seen it's Mark Cuban. It's seen it's Masai Ujiri in basketball, but I don't think it's seen. We got a lot of talent. We got a booming population. It's about right place, right time. I think the right place and the right time. People would have said, like, Drake would have had to left Canada to blow up, right? He got a good cosign, but he didn't have to leave.
You don't think so?
Okay, maybe a little bit, but he still kept it front and center in his story.
Yeah, but he
worked with people outside, but he kept it front and center. What I'm saying is, well, here's one thing. You also got to look at what market are you going after. So again, if I were a traditional entertainer, I'd say, okay, I want to go after the biggest market because that's pop, right? So obviously I got to go to LA and New York, and I got to get on GMA, and I got to get on Good Morning LA, and I got to get on Extra and TMZ, right? So that's how it would work for an average journalist if this were the NBA model, where you go through the ranks of how AAU, high school, NCAA, G League, NBA. And that's the model. If this is sport to you, right? But for me, it's like, okay, well, what's the most important thing to accomplish with my career and my skill set? And I would say, I live in Toronto. If I could create some kind of content play in Toronto where I was exposing Torontonians to the exact type of content that would turn what I believe to be a beacon of light on the planet into an even better city, and help it become even greater. And then by educating those same people that I'm showing this show to, I get to live in that world because I live in the same city with them, and I'm rubbing shoulders with them. And so now we are all living in this information. I would say that is way better of a plan than moving to a place that I know is in political disharmony and, severely over capitalistic, and just to become the biggest and bestest at what I do. I don't know if, from what I've learned from doing this for as long as, that's not a road to any kind of success I want.
Okay. Do you feel like it have more opportunity? That's kind of the road out.
No, I would say this. The biggest opportunity is here because, okay, let's say you sold cars in a place where there were 3 car companies, or a town where they never saw cars before and they had decent income.
Where would I sell cars?
Where would you sell the cars? A place where they've never seen cars before, they had decent income, or a place with lots of people, but a lot of car companies, highly competitive car companies?
I would sell it in where there were no cars being sold.
I don't think anyone's selling cars over here, bro. I don't. I think they're selling bikes and horses, maybe a dune buggy or 2. Vice was a nice attempt, but it got bought out. But I don't think anybody's selling cars, and I want to sell cars. I want to be the Henry Ford of this. Or maybe not. Maybe my son or my nephew or my niece or my daughter or whatever. But I want to be part of that story, because I think that story is cooler than just going to the United States and working for Fox.
Or ESPN.
Or ESPN.
Or creating like an ESPN in Toronto, bro. Mimicking the same.
There's something new happening, man. There's something new happening. And I want to be part of that always. I'll be the old guy hanging around the young kids.
That's what's up, the young
in the
OG.
right way, though.
The young OG.
Know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So yeah, man. I was gonna ask, what does the future career for Akil look like, bro? Does it, are you gonna get into reporting new sports, or creating a new show, or pursuing business ventures? What is the future of your career? What does that look like for you in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, definitely broadcasting is my bread and butter. I never stop doing this. Storytelling is an archetype that I've bought into. It's part of who I am. It's just like basketball. Being a basketball player and a football player is part of who I am. Yeah. So I don't think I'll be giving up the role I have with the Toronto Raptors and the Raptors 905 anytime soon. I worked too hard to be in this fortunate of a position to squander this opportunity. But there are more things to be done. Unfortunately, due to the times, I had to put one of my projects not on hold, but it's just impossible to execute right now. But over the last year, I've been developing, I'm huge into mindfulness and meditation and breath work. So I've been developing a curriculum and a pilot program called the Mind Club. And so what it was going to be a pilot program that hopefully we could have satellite projects throughout all of, the greater Toronto area and eventually Southern Ontario. But just kind of these safe spaces. We want to work with the Toronto Public Library and other safe spaces where we just create these bi-weekly meetups for students identified by our outreach counselors. And what we would do is we would do breath work and not necessarily meditation, because meditation is a huge ask for adults and kids, but I've stumbled upon some great techniques in breath work and mindfulness. And so I've been doing it with a couple schools. Just over the quarantine, and I've been doing some stuff on IG Live with my peers and my friends. So there is a curriculum and a proposal and a document out, but we haven't gone out for funding yet, simply because our original intention was to be in the schools 2021 in September. But with what's going on with COVID and what's going on with the economy, I haven't bothered to make the ask of the sponsors yet. But we've got most of the beams in place. Shouts out to a lot of cool individuals from all over the North America at least, who pitched in their ideas. We had a lot of great Zoom meetings with some people that I'm very fortunate to be introduced to through this project. And that's my next thing. I think that's the thing I'm most excited about, because like I worked on it in silence for so long. And I was ready now at this point in the year to start really going after the funding with some of the partners that I do have.
Yeah.
But, the world's got issues, and we got to solve those first. But definitely for me, it's working with the kids on breath work, breathing. Breathing's going to be a big part of the rest of the next 5 to 10 years, and hopefully longer.
Crazy, right? So I wanted to kind of tap into social justice talk. So I know last time we spoke about Black America and the excessive form of racism, but I would want to turn a page to professional sports and, how social justice has kind of like intertwined with like the NBA and stuff like that. So how do you feel that athlete activism has been exercised in the NBA, and what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, perfectly. If you ask me, because, okay, Fred VanVleet just did an interview on Sportsnet with my guys. And it was beautiful because here's the thing. The athlete activism as an optics thing doesn't work to a certain extent, because what happened was it got co-opted by the leagues as a form of marketing, right? We're putting Black Lives Matters on buses and courts. It was like the new Nike logo, right? It was like the new Off-White. Like, oh yeah, I'm anti-racist. It's this new thing that I can wear, because we turn everything into something we can wear in our culture right now, right? Like feminism is a shirt, equality is a shirt. You can get a shoe that says you're, anti-abortion, maybe. I don't know. There's everything. You can buy anything. Yeah. So I think the players. Shouts out to them, because this is something I think about, right? But then we all think we're smarter than everybody else. But it was really cool for me to see a guy like Fred VanVleet be savvy, like really like iceberg slim level savvy, and say to the owners, like, no, stop with the TV thing, because we know where you guys vote. We know where your political allegiances lie, and we know your hiring practices and your social circles and your like, we know these things, right? We're $30 million bucks fresh out the stable. We're getting privy to your lifestyle. And so I think a lot of the best stuff's happening behind closed doors. I think there's stuff, from what I understand, there are things that are being asked for now by NBA superstars of the owners that were never asked of before. Before it was, we were asking for our contracts, but you see, the contracts are here. Somebody just offered James Harden $50 million for a year's worth of work, and he turned it down. So the contracts are here.
And that's nothing to the NBA.
Yeah. So now we're sliding into a whole other area of things being asked for. Like, there was the whole COVID stopped this, but I think the players had demanded that the facilities for each NBA team be used as voter registration sites and early registration sites and maybe voting sites. And it was, the owners don't want the fans voting. The fans come from another economic bracket. So I think, and that's just like one of the very surface level things that's happening, and we won't know what's happening. That's the sad part, right? As we want to document and share, there are things that are going to change that we're not going to be able to talk about. But that's great. I'm for it. But I think, to me, the best part was the players themselves, who have the players' union, went out and made I don't know. I'm not used to us getting wins. Wins that aren't like programmed into the matrix. Like Neo breaking out of the matrix was supposed to happen. Like that. Like they wanted to give us the 3-second graphic overlay with the stuff on the floor, like, cause like, what does that change, right? What does that change?
It's like a quick Band-Aid, just putting a Band-Aid on a cut.
You're putting it in an echo chamber because it's the same people that already agree with you. Like, I don't think the NBA's fan base is racist. Like, there's no fan base that I think needs to address the issue of racism less than the NBA's. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, who are you really talking to?
That's a fact. So, then for you, I guess, with your unique position in the media world, what do you think is the most effective way to combat like social justice issues within the Black community now?
talking to white people. It's the only way. We've been talking to each other for generations. We've been talking bad about white people to each other for generations. We've been defending white people who've been doing this bad to each other for generations. Just go talk to the other side, man. I think that's the big issue with a lot of us right now. It's like we're willing to hold judgments and opinions about people that we dislike without knowing anything about them except for the things that we think we know about them. And I can't tell you how many times I've ever been right in life. Maybe 3 times. I'm always wrong. I'll get this done by this day. Nope, took a year longer. Still got it done, but I wasn't right. So like, if I'm gonna live in my mental projections about people when I know that I don't get anything right, basically, I'm shooting the terrible percentage out here, then you're living in like a false illusion of your own machinations. Like, so I think that's the most important thing you can do right now. I don't see how, like, okay, so one of the things that people think is a marker of success right now, this whole race thing, is like, oh, black people are in this ad or black people are on this show. I'm here to say the whole system's faulty, and the system generates, it's like if black people become part of the dominant part, then someone else is still getting exploited, right? Because the system is built a certain way. It's like, let's not just move from being, the person being exploited to joining the exploiter. Like, oh, now we've got our shows on NBC, and now these people are no, there's something inherently wrong with the way that we work. So I'm not ready to cheer on, oh, there's a black version of this, or black people are in these ads, or oh, they're hiring black people at these companies. Like, these companies are inherently racist in the way they treat the environment, in the way they treat women, in the way they treat Aboriginals, or out in the way they treat the out group, right? Because that's really what we're always talking about, is the out group, right? Yeah. How do you treat the out group? And our society inherently treats the out group poorly for some reason, and I think we can't just become part of that. Like, oh, black people are now part of America's culture and the tapestry, so now we can join in plundering the earth, and then no, don't do that. Don't become that. Like, become better. And the thing is too, like, we're even robbing the people who are part of that culture, because like, if we're the out group and we have the opportunity to shift how people look at it, like, if we just join them, they'll never get to where we could take them, right? So it's like it's a quadruple-edged sword.
Damn, it's crazy. So allyship, then I guess we got to work in coalition with the other side. Well, not the other side. But
wait. Here's my reasoning, because like, I'll take that the full. I'll take that thought to the complete end of it. If not, then we have enemies. If not allies, then we have enemies. So you're gonna choose your story. Do you have allies, or do you have enemies?
Strike the numbers. I'm gonna go allies.
I want allies.
Yeah, I'm gonna go allies. All right, man. So now we're going to turn to quick hitters, bro. I'm just going to ask you some rapid fire questions, man. So what are your top 5 travel destinations, bro?
Ooh, well, I'm lucky enough to be someone who can travel. So I'm going to say, first off, Costa Rica may be the dopest place on earth. And I was there during a pandemic when no one else was there, but honestly, that place has got a lot of life in it. Damn, I went from Chepe, which is what the locals call the capital city of San Jose, to the mountain towns of Sarchi. We're in the Caribbean side, Manzanillo with my Jamaican homies, and then we went all the way to Guanacaste and got caught up in it was Eta. So it was a tropical depression. So I got to see that. Saw monkeys, howler monkeys, sloths. It was crazy. So I'd say that. I'd say I love going to Barcelona. I know people say it's like this. It's like the slum of Europe, but like, I went to Barcelona for 3 straight summers when I first started traveling, because I fell in love with that place. You know what? A really dope place to travel, Ontario, man. This summer, I discovered Ontario was friggin' amazing.
Where? What parts?
Everywhere. The Kawarthas, Muskoka. Like, it was just,
you were up in
I finally met someone. Shouts out to white people once again. Someone with a cottage, and they put me on. And I can tell you right now, I may never leave Ontario in the summer, because there's a lot to do out here. That's 3 places. I mean, I think everybody knows I got to go home to Trinidad. For Carnival in Trinidad, February, March times. It's the only time to be on the island if you don't want to be sleeping all day in the heat. So I love that. And then as the last destination, Favorite place to travel? Shoot, it's a coin toss between New York and LA.
Gotta be New York, bro.
Oh, yeah.
You got the Brooklyn connection, bro.
Yeah, my mom's in Brooklyn, so she wants me to say Brooklyn. But yeah, no, it's definitely Brooklyn. I like Brooklyn because Brooklyn's a planet. It's the only place where I can. Well, it used to be. Brooklyn used to be a place where I could feel really at home.
Yeah.
But shouts out to white people. I like that you've joined us there too. Brooklyn's different. Brooklyn's mad different now.
Yeah, no, gentrification is a mother, you know.
Hey, but let's all live together, man. Now let's throw some black people up in the Hamptons and everything will be even.
For sure. So all-time rap starting lineup, bro.
My personal starting lineup of the guys I would choose. Ooh. At the point guard, Q-Tip of Tribe Called Quest. Because he sets up great flows. So I think he would be a great. You know, it reminds me so offbeat. I'm not the guy you want to talk rap with. I got MF Doom in my starting lineup. MF Doom, obscure, offbeat, New York City, throwback, Jungle Brothers. So do some research and Google MF Doom if you're interested. You probably aren't. So
Q-Tip.
Fife. Yeah, Q-Tip.
MF Doom.
MF Doom. I'm not going to put Fife on, although I want to.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace to the 5-foot freak, a fellow Trinidadian. Jay-Z and Kanye West are a dummy, gimme, you're stupid if they're not. Right?
Where do you put Jay-Z though? Because I have the greatest rapper.
God MC, okay. J-Hove.
Okay.
But if he's God, Kanye's the devil, and I love them both, right? Because Kanye's amazing.
Kanye, like early Kanye or
no?
Now?
All Kanye.
Really?
All Kanye. Anything Kanye does, if he does right, when you pick up a stick, you pick up both sides. You don't get Michael Jordan winning the finals without Michael Jordan getting cut from the basketball team. So you don't get someone that gets that high without someone getting that low.
Thanks.
So I take Kanye any year. And then for me, the last spot is a toss-up between two of my favorite rappers of all time, two guys that I ride with every day. And that's either Guru or Black Thought.
Black Thought is ill.
Yeah. But Guru, he may have some of the, because I was listening to him when I was like 13, 12, and I'm very fortunate that I got to listen to the types of rappers that I got to listen to at that age. Like I was listening to the Nas, Jay-Z, Cormega, AZ, right? So like I feel bad for other kids because like you're at such an impressionable age, and maybe that's just the times, but I just know that those guys were so concerned with representing themselves as black men in a certain way. And then again, that's a result of like, you know, the culture that we were in, right? So now it's black kids are allowed to be gay, have blonde hair, in their own groups. I don't think that was acceptable when we were younger. So for us, we were trying to like really be young businessmen, young Italian mobsters. You know, we were heavily off of like all those Italian mob movies. That was so everybody had the clean fade, a golf shirt, buttoned up. Even though our stuff was baggy, like we still aspired to be really clean.
Yeah.
And I think to the day, that aesthetic still helps me.
Nice, bro. So top 5 movies, bro.
Okay. The greatest.
I know you're a Spike Lee man.
Yeah. So, but he only shows up once because I gotta give respect to a lot of great filmmakers. So the Spike Lee film that will show up in my top 5. And he's got a lot of great films. A lot of bad films too. I will say that because I'm honest.
Yeah.
He's got some bad films.
What's your favorite Spike film, bro?
Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing.
Classic.
So the crazy story about Do the Right Thing is my family moved to Brooklyn maybe a couple of years before that, but like that's like my family's neighborhood. I wasn't there at the time, but like that's the neighborhood where he filmed that summer. That my mom, my little sister, my dad, and my uncle, they all lived there. So like when I was watching that movie, it was really hard for me as a kid because I'm like, I want to be there with them.
Yeah.
But I'd say that. Interstellar is, I'm a futurist. I really think mankind can do amazing things. I'm not a postmodernist at all. So I'm a futurist and I like films like Interstellar. The Matrix, because you got to wake up. So The Matrix is a huge, huge, huge movie for me. Arrival, because it's a movie about communication done by Canadian filmmaker Denis Villeneuve. It's a blockbuster level movie, bro.
Is it on Netflix?
It should be. Yeah, it's on Netflix right now. Watch Arrival. It's a movie. It's a sci-fi movie. It's a movie about emotions, but it's a movie about language in an odd way, and I love language. So to me, it had one of the coolest it had ideas I'd never thought about before. To me, that was just exciting. Like, oh, I haven't thought about that. Let me get into this. So I really liked Arrival. And as a fifth favorite film, I'm going to go with something that probably isn't highbrow and something that I really enjoy. And so I'd say if I ever am not feeling well, had a bad day, and like I just want to go home and like just do my thing and just turn my brain off, it's one of two films. So I'm going to put both of them. I've done that for everything, I think.
Yeah.
There's a coin flip, again, between Jurassic Park and Independence Day.
Oh, Jurassic Park.
Those, I think that's classic 90s summer blockbuster. Again, you look at people at the age they were at when they saw things, right? And so the best alien movie I'd ever seen when I was a super impressionable age was Will Smith punching an alien in the face.
Men in Black, yeah.
No. I'm older than you. So to me, it was Independence Day.
Okay.
Like to you, that was
Men in Black.
Yeah, that was your big one.
Yeah.
I'm a little older, so to me, when Independence Day hit, anything with Jeff Goldblum or Will Smith, I mean.
Damn, that's what's up, bro. And then one book recommendation you'll give to our audience.
One. Okay, I got 5. Everything else, but only in one book.
Okay, give me 3 books.
All right. Well, I know how you people do. If it's just 3 books, okay, I'll give a book for each level of interest.
Okay, so one book that you would recommend for personal growth.
Yep.
One book that you would recommend for sports media professionals, and then one book for like meditation or self-enlightenment.
Okay, so the book for meditation and enlightenment is a book that is the very first step I think you should take. And it's not even about meditation and enlightenment, but it'll get you on your way. And it's called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, however you want to pronounce his last name. But like, it's like step 1, right? And it's also step 500, but it's step 1 too. So it's huge.
All right,
The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. The one about sports professionals, I think Verilyn Klinkenborg's several paragraphs on short sentences. Only because I think the ability to see what I just did there? That's a dramatic pause. I got people listening and waiting, right? I had you. So the ability to structure sentences in a way that entertains people is super important when you're being a broadcaster or a journalist or anything like that. So I think one of the gifts that I got was like, I had some nerdy teachers, and so they put me on to like Shakespeare and like Immanuel Kant and like all these obscure guys who wrote really fun, because they knew I liked rap. And they knew I was, like, in high school I was rapping. It's like, ooh, well, why don't you check these?
Literature guys.
16th century rappers from Dublin. You know, like they thought that, but it was for me because I liked words and I like language. So I recommend that book simply because if you are going to demand people's attention, and that's what like getting likes on Instagram is, getting views on YouTube or whatever, TikTok, I think how you structure sentences and how you communicate with people is super important. And I pride myself on being able to like mix up the way I communicate, but it's really hard to do on paper. And I think so much of the communication we do now isn't on paper, but it's digital. So you gotta be able to punch up a concept in a way that doesn't take too many words, but also that hasn't been heard before. You know, like you're not going on, hey, yo, IG fam. Like you got 1,000 ways to address people, as my sister continues to harass me. She found out I got tattoos today. She's not happy. But yeah, I think being able to like communicate well is important in that craft. So being able to structure short sentences is huge, and it'll help you speak too. And then the other one is personal development and growth.
Yeah,
ooh,
self-help.
Okay. I'm so deep down this like rabbit hole that like I got 1 billion books, but you also got to factor in where people are at, right? So I'm going to think this book is the most relevant book of all time, but I've also been doing this for 20 years, right? So I'm so far down the rabbit hole.
I think I know what book you're going to say.
I don't even know what book I'm going to say. What book do you think I'm going to say?
The autobiography of Malcolm X.
Ooh, that is such a good one, but it's very specific to like.
Yeah.
Let me, a really good self-help book. Oh, I got one for you. It is called, let me get the name of it. It's actually, I've been reading the PDF of it, and it's blown me away. It is called The Way to Love, The Last Meditations of Anthony DeMello. Anthony DeMello, I surprised I'd never heard of him before. I'd recently discovered him while I was in Costa Rica. One of my Costa Rica friends swears by him as his guru. And I read a chapter of that book, and that chapter had me floored for days. I was like, wow, that's me. That's what's wrong with me. So, The Way to Love by Anthony DeMello. That's a new one. Okay,
that's dope. So, last but not least, a message you would give to your younger self.
Breathe deeply. Always. This is a message. If someone were to give me a billboard in Times Square, I would put those two words up. Breathe deeply. I think one thing a lot of young people don't realize is okay, this is going to be a big answer to that question. Actually, I already given you the answer. This is just me wanting to talk now. All right, so I think in my young life, because I'm one of those super hyper kids that gets super excited, and what I learned later in life is I was short-circuiting. When you're in school and you're you're short-circuiting, because every single human being suffers from trauma. We're just now figuring this out, right? Just being born into Earth is fucking traumatic, man. You know what I'm saying? You don't get to, maybe you get to pick your parents, but they're not ready. You're not ready. No one's ready, right? And everybody's coming out of their childhood hurt, right? So we're all super traumatized. And so I think what I didn't realize is that a lot of the times when we get excited, when we get frustrated, when we get emotional, when we get hyper, when we get depressed, it's our inner circuitry isn't wired up. We got blockages, and I'm talking energetic blockages. And I know it sounds woo-woo and weird, but as we learn more about the human body and quantum physics, what you're learning is you feel those things, right? You feel it in your chest, you feel it in your gut. People say it, you feel it in your gut, you feel it in your chest, literally they're sayings. So I think as I've gotten older and I've learned, because there's two ways to get older, right? You can get older and you can kind of go crazy. Well, there's three ways then. So you can just go crazy, right? You can just continue to not be in control of yourself and get into debt and marry everybody and get divorced and just get out of control. Then you can repress all the stuff inside of you and you can white knuckle it and you can try to become a good person while secretly inside just fucking not believing in everything that you're dealing with and just being frustrated. Or you can accept what's happening. And what I've noticed is the easiest way to physically accept reality is to breathe deeply. Because what's happening when you're having a bad game?
Yeah.
And what does coach say?
Relax, just chill. Yeah.
What happens when people get panic attacks?
Yeah, hyperventilating.
And when people say, just
relax,
breathe deeply. Yeah. And so if you notice when people are having their worst time, the thing that you say to people is, just
breathe deeply.
Breathe deeply. So if I had to tell anybody anything, even when I'm having a great day, if I were to stop and breathe deeply, that day would probably get better.
That's true. A man of many words. You have.
Oh, yes.
Akil Augustine. Tell them where they can follow you on Instagram, man.
It's I'm lucky enough to have my government name, so they can find me, Akil Augustine.
All right. Well, checking out on episode 9 here on A Culture Conversation. I'm your host, Twin GQ. We have our guest, Akil, checking out. So see you guys next week for our last and final episode of the season.
You know, a guy's old when he does this. He doesn't know what to do with his hands. Yep.